All right, so what we're going to look at here is how to handle connectivity of SD-WAN into a cloud service provider. The example I'm going to demonstrate is how we do it for AWS. Um, just setting some background here. If you look at an SD-WAN framework here shown on the left of the slide here, SD-WAN fabric with edges and data center, we want to extend that capability into the cloud service provider AWS. And traditionally, you would have had to stand up their version of a gateway, which is shown in these yellow circle icons here, and build VPN connections from your edge devices. So it doesn't participate in the fabric. It's just a connection point. And then think about some of the difficulties of determining how do I route things to that particular destination? How do I get routes back to my environment, right? All that's manually handled in this setup. One of the initial action items to improve all of this performance was to figure out a way to instantiate a virtual instance of a router into the particular providers, the cloud service providers. And so we've been able to do that with the routers we had in the past, things like our CSR Cloud Services router. We can do that now with our Catalyst 8000B. But this type of integration or turning on a virtual router in the environment has benefits, such as if I can get those routers up and running, I have that one management plane. I unify that. So my SD-WAN fabric with all my edge devices, these can be just more edge devices in the environment. So it simplifies all of the policies and everything I might have written. However, it presents itself with our new set of challenges here. Namely, well, how do I instantiate that router? In the world of AWS, do I go to AWS Marketplace? Do I then search for a Cisco router and then spin it up, picking the right size for memory and CPU and things like that? And then once it's up, how do I make sure it gets integrated into the SD-WAN management plane? So I'll have to kind of open up a console session to it and issue some commands to get it registered. So those kind of connections, once I get it up and running, pose some challenges. And then once they're in place, how do I ensure things like routing from my CSP area is integrated towards the rest of my SD-WAN fabric routing? Maybe how do I extend my segmentation strategy in case I have several VRFs or VPNs in SD-WAN? How do I make sure those are handled appropriately as we land in the particular CSP? What do we do at Cisco's approach? We're able to partner with uh, cloud providers, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. And what we're doing here, listed some benefits here, but at a high level, we're talking about using APIs to extend all of that automation capability. Those challenges I just presented in the last slide, handling all of those challenges by leveraging automation. And you can see the benefits here. Automation, quick, getting that SD-WAN device into the virtual SD-WAN edge device into the fabric simpler, extending our policies, making it part of the management plane, automatically getting it as part of the routing capability, unify that control plane, and basically simplify everything with a simpler integration approach. So we do that by doing automation, right? I mentioned the APIs. So if you look at SD-WAN extended into a region, a CSP region 1 here with a few VPCs in place, what we're doing here in the world of AWS is we'll instantiate a Transit VPC. We'll then spin up a couple of virtual routers. We're going to call them cloud gateways. These are Catalyst 8000Bs. We'll build the connection to the SD-WAN fabric from these routers, so now they're part of the overall SD-WAN fabric. We'll then extend the automation by turning on a transit gateway that then connects our new Transit VPC with the existing VPCs that exist in the region. So this allows us to basically build the automation to automatically connect everything together. And furthermore, once that's in place, that transit gateway will turn on the infrastructure routing table, and that will allow us to get automatic routes. We'll get those updates from the transit gateway to our virtual routers or Cat AKVs via BGP. And so that allows us to have those routes automatically propagated based on a policy for VPN VRF separation. And so that's what we're going to go through today in the demonstration. How do we do that with vManage, and how have we simplified this whole process so that it's easy to get up and running and customers don't have to deal with all the different pieces that would normally be part of the solution. Okay, so let's go ahead and proceed with the demonstration. I'm going to start off, I'm going to show how we're going to leverage these automation capabilities to connect an AWS instance cloud gateway into our SD-WAN fabric. So here I am in vManage, and the first thing we're going to do is go look at the feature called Cloud Onramp for Multicloud. So we'll start that, clicking on the cloud icon here, and we'll go to the Cloud Onramp for Multicloud dashboard. Note here, we've got some information about the various cloud providers we can integrate with. This particular instance already has one connection to AWS. We're going to stand up a new one. And at the bottom of the page, we have our information about our workflows. So if this were the first time you were doing it, you'd have to associate your cloud account. A few pieces of information you stick in there in order to do that association. I can look at the account management page to show that we've already integrated this group's cloud account. So that information has already been put in place here. If I wanted to, we're doing a new one, I have some information in there. And then you actually can do some global cloud settings here as well, where you put things in like whether you're going to implement transit gateways. I just talked about that. So yes, we are. What version of software, basically, what level of size of the virtual machine, and then which CAD-KV instance you're going to run. So information like that is all embedded in that setting. Those are already set for here. So really the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to add a connection in that's in London. And so first thing I'll do is I need to go and do a host private network discovery to find the host private networks that I'm going to be available to map my intent towards. So again, I want to connect certain VPCs in the end to my SD-WAN fabric. And so in this case, I am going to take a look at the host VPC that I have in place. I do a search on that. We can see these are already mapped, right? These are the ones for the existing environment. I'm going to take add in these that I put in Europe West, so two that actually exist in London, which is Europe West 2. And I need to actually tag them so that the system knows that they are available to create my mappings. So let me go ahead and check the box for both of them. And under tag actions, I'm going to add a tag. And I'm just going to call this host. This tag is going to be host VPC. Oops, VPC, and they're both going to be part of London, so I'll just call host VPC London. All right, so go ahead and add that tag. All right, shouldn't take very long. We're really just going to create that tag to make them available within the system. And we see success. So once that's done, that element is finished. Now there's one last prep work we have to do before we actually connect in our environment, and that is we actually have to prep our virtual routers with a template. Basically getting started template. So I pop over to configuration templates, and under device templates, make sure I've selected the defaults, and I can look for an AWS default template. You can see this is exactly the one we're going to do. It's an AWS transit gateway type connection with a CAD-KV. So that is the one we are going to attach our devices to with some basic information. And I have selected to use these two devices here. So let me add them. And so with these two devices in place, these will be our virtual or cloud routers that'll be connected into our cloud provider service provider. I got to edit some basic device template information. First off, what is the VPN color? Remember, this is connecting to the rest of the SD-WAN fabric. So I need to make sure that I'm attaching it to the same color as the rest of the fabric. In this case, we're using public internet. So I'm picking that one, give them a name here. So let's call it CGW AWS London. And this guy will be, let's call him C8KV1. All right, and we have to have a system I'm going to leverage some system IP information here for this guy. I'm going to put him in site 6020. So let's give it 1.6.2, and we'll make this guy, I don't know, let's make him 10 6020 update. And as we edit the other one, same thing, public internet. CGW AWS London C8KV2, and he is going to be 1.6.2.11. Look at that, 6020. Actually, that might get confusing. want to make him 12 and 11. We'll do that. Let's make him 12. Keep things a little cleaner, I think. Version router 2. Update that, and let me quickly modify it. I'm gonna align them together. We'll make this 1, and then I'm gonna make this .11. And that makes it cleaner. Update. Okay, so we got our information in place. Let's go ahead and deploy the template to these 2 devices. Yes, I'm going to confirm. I'm going to make that change. Okay. And you'll see that we'll start pushing the templates to these devices that are out there. And done or scheduled. So we're ready to go when these devices register to the environment. So all of our prep work is now done. I'm going to go back to Cloud Onramp for Multicloud. And back on my my workflow dashboard, we are going to create our new cloud gateway. You see, if I start selecting that, we have a graphic here, what we're really doing. This represents the SD-WAN fabric with all the branches. And you can see these are the elements that get done as part of the automation flow. It's going to create a Transit VPC, and it's going to put these 2 routers into that Transit VPC. It's going to create the Transit gateway. It's going to have a GRE tunnel between the 2, and then provide for a connection to the host VPCs to this cloud gateway when we do our mapping. All right, so let's go and give this guy a name. Cloud Gateway AWS, and then we're doing London. I will select my account, and the region we are going to be in will be London, which is Europe West 2. All right, and the site I deployed was at 6020 site, so here I select it, and in selecting that, we can see our 2 CAD AKVs automatically appear for the ones that we're going to create as part of this cloud gateway environment. I'm going to leave it with that version of software. Note I could actually choose different versions of software that are available. I'm just going to stick with the 17.9. I do want to actually upgrade this to the extra large beefy router, and I'm going to use a new subnet pool 1098.00/16 to build my connection. Okay, all in place. I am going to add the environment, and so once I add, you're going to see the automation processes kick off. While this is going, if I pop over to AWS, you can see that I've got my 2 host VPCs right now, but we don't have anything else in the environment. And if I pop over to EC2, we can see that I have no instances running right now. So if I go back to this environment, we can see the progress happening where elements are starting to be spun up as part of the automation. So we'll start with creating that transit gateway called Cloud Gateway AWS London. And so this process will take a few minutes as it goes through and creates all those elements that I showed in the graphic on the last step. And we can continue to monitor the progress here. Talks about that transit gateway successfully created. If I pop back over to my VPC management and I look at the transit gateways, we can see we now have this transit gateway AWS London available. So it's been created in the environment here. And so now it's going to create the transit VPC, and we can monitor that progress if we wanted to over here by looking at the VPCs and see if our 3rd one gets instantiated. Yep, so we can see Cloud Gateway AWS London has now been made available with that subnet area we picked, 10.98. So we see that we have transit VPC in the cloud. It's been created, and now it tells us that it's going to go ahead and create those 2 virtual routers, and that this will take a few minutes. So what we would expect is as these get created, we would expect that over on my EC2 page, if I'm monitoring the progress, we should have a couple of instances appearing. If I click on my instances, we can see absolutely we got the 2 routers now starting to come online. They're initializing, as you see here. And so we'll wait on the system here to make those routers available. Okay, so we have the two routers created, and now it's going to attach the Transit VPC to the Transit Gateway. So more work being done within the AWS environment to create our mappings. And I will accelerate this or trim the video. There's no reason to sit and watch as it takes a few minutes for these elements to complete. So I'll shorten the video for the audience. All right, we're back now, and we can see the attachment of the Transit VPC to the Transit Gateway is done. The Transit VPC, we saw this thing, Cloud Gateway AWS London created, and now we have created the cloud gateways and checking if the mapping is required for those host VPCs to map. And so it's taking a look to see if any of those have to be added in. All right. And we can see our routers have appeared within vManage. Still some elements working out for their environment, but you can see the system IPs and the location still coming online completely here as this guy here is going to build his connection to the cloud. As these mapping changes are taking place, I'm going to take a quick peek over at our devices, and we're going to see what's going on with our two cloud gateways that we stood up according to vManage. So I can see the two have appeared. You can see we have the information that we applied and that they're up, connected to vSmart, and their VFD tunnels are running. So made some progress on this side for the routers. Let's go back and we'll just continue waiting for the system to finish mapping the backend connections to the host VPCs. Okay, we're back here. Then we can see after a few minutes here, mapping changes applied. We successfully realized the intent. We've had a success here. And so everything is connected correctly. And if I go back to my cloud Onramp for Multicloud, I can see now we have our London cloud gateway created. Health with two reachable devices. I click on that, we can see it's the two Cat 8 KVs. No surprise. And so all we're left to do is map our VPNs that we want to have connectivity. So the last step then is to take that host private network setting we had and map it here to the correct VPN VRF that we want to map it to. So under intent management, I click on cloud connectivity and I get my table. And in my table build here, we'll see that on the left, the columns are listed as the source, and these are the VRFs that are part of the system. And across the top, we see the various VPCs that have been tagged to be available here. Among those, here's the one that we created at the start of our lab, which is that host VPC London. So for the purposes of this example, we're going to go ahead and map this VPC to VPN 10. So let me go ahead and edit. And I'm just going to check the box to say, yep, I want VPN 10 to be able to talk to VPC London, and then we will save that change. This will take a few minutes progress-wise to complete this integration as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording, and I'll come back in a few minutes once this is finished. Okay, we're back now, and you can see here we've got a success. Our mapping was successfully applied, or mapping successful into the cloud. And let's go ahead and pop back over to Cloud Onramp for Multicloud, and we can see here is our cloud gateway listed, and we now have the 4 reachable tunnels to the transit gateway. VPN 10 mapped towards the host VPC. You can see VPN 10 here, and if I hover over the tags, it's at Host VPC London. If I click into this device, I can get some information, traffic if we had any going, would start populating here, but I can look at my cloud gateway devices here, and I can take a further look at some other information here, which I want to show. Let me go over to real time. And under real time, I just want to show that the BGP has been established. Let's look at our neighbors. I will filter. And you can see we've got this particular router has the 4 VPN tunnels built. And so we have, basically we have 2 to each of the VPCs. And so you can see to the remote AS, which is 64602. And we can see that they're established here on the VRF 10. So that connection's in place. And if I want to just look at my routes, show filter, and we're going to go with VPN 10. And we'll search. And we can see with a quick look here that we see here they are 10.188.10 and 10.188.20 are being learned via BGP, so that we have that connection coming in. So now that subnet, those subnets with the VPC are fully extended to VPN 10 being propagated into the rest of the environment. So now we have full routing going in connection with our integration towards AWS.